Welcome to the CQN Podcast, a Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and this week I'm delighted to be able to share a recent interview I did with a modern day Celtic icon. Neil Lennon joined me at Glasgow's Royal Concert Hall in January as part of the Legends of Football double bill that also included his old teammate Chris Sutton. We spoke for an hour, but it could so easily have been 3 or 4. He was open, engaging and witty. And you can tell from the reception he got that he's certainly still a favourite of many Celtic supporters. I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did. Here is Neil Lennon with a Celtic State of Mind.
Now, the next guest this evening is a man who, as a player and a manager at Celtic Park, has legendary status. Could you please put your hands together and welcome onto the stage Mr. Neil Lennon.
Bet you're glad there's not two. Oh, well, I've been listening to something. Every day I come into the dressing room, you go, oh, you put a few pounds on there, Lenny, haven't you? Make you so fucking paranoid, it was untrue.
Neil, it's an absolute pleasure, and it's a privilege for me to share a stage with you tonight. So thank you very much for being here. Very much like Chris, I'm going to run through your career. Your memories of your career prior to coming to Celtic Park, and then obviously everything that entailed. And looking at your childhood in Lurgan in Northern Ireland, how prevalent or how much of a presence did Celtic have around about those parts, Neil?
Celtic was huge. I started my football with the Lurgan Celtic Supporters Club, and made a under 11 team, 12, 13, right up until under 15. Out of the Celtic Supporters Club in Lurgan, and it was brilliant, and you get the lads going over for the weekends to watch the games and coming back and telling stories. There's pictures of the Lisbon lands all around the bar, and they would regale stories about games. And the Lisbon lands were, mythical people that you wanted to, dream about. And then later on, as you get older, you get to see the likes of the Paul McStays of this world, I was a huge fan of. And then when I went to England and started playing, I used to watch Celtic on the TV, and things weren't going so well, and I'd be like Yosser Hughes going, I could do that. Give me a job, But it was, Ireland was split into two. You had the Catholic side of the fence, you had the Protestant side of the fence, and we played at Lurgan Celtic and travelled all over the country. And I was quick in them days because you had to be, Paul, especially when you played in the Protestant areas.
So, like many people in the north of Ireland, all over the UK, you had this aspiration and this dream to be a footballer, Neil. When did it become quite clear to you that you might have something here?
I played in the Milk Cup tournament, which was a big tournament in Korean for the local team, which was Craigavon Boys, and we got to the final. And there's a lot of teams there, Man United, a lot of English teams, and Motherwell were there, Rangers were there, a lot of teams. Celtic hadn't put a team in that particular year. We got to the final, and then that's when people started taking notice, and there was a few scouts then rang the house afterwards, and it just progressed from there, really.
So you landed in Manchester. What age were you then?
I was 16.
16-year-old. How big a move was that, looking back? I mean, I speak to Jim McCallick, who scored at Wembley, and he's a teenager. I was a milk boy at that time. And you're 16 and you're going away to Manchester, big city lights. How did you adapt to that?
It was really exciting. My mum and dad fucking couldn't wait to drive me to the ferry. They're like, oh, bye. Send us a postcard. There's no mobile phones in them days, so you got the Belfast to Liverpool ferry, and then it could go overnight, and it could take 10 hours, so you're on this frigging thing up and down all night in a wee cabin. There's 4 of us in a cabin. Get the bus from Liverpool to Manchester sort of the middle of the night. You end up in a B&B in a place called Rusholme, which was 10 minutes from what was then Main Road. You get up in the morning and you have your breakfast, and you say to the landlady, how far is it to the stadium? She goes, it was in this little closed crescent. You come out of the closed crescent, walk across the Main Road, you'll see the stadium in the distance. So we'll come out of this crescent onto Withenshaw Road, and it's the Asian quarter of Manchester. And I walked across the road, and I said to one guy, I said, do you know where the Main Road is? He goes, yeah, just walk down that road, I'll take you into Moss Side. Heard a couple of guns going off in Moss Side, which made me feel right at home, so I was all right with that. And then into Main Road. So, like Chris, you know, we were on the YTS scheme. So the first wage you got was £28.50. And you thought you were loaded, you know, £28.50. It didn't go a long way, but it did in those days. And then the second year was £35, and there was a couple of Irish boys with me, a guy called Jerry Taggart and Michael Hughes, who went on to really good careers as well. So I had a great 3 years there. They were brilliant, Man City, and not the club they are now, but at the time they did a brilliant youth policy. We got the 2 youth cup finals, and things went really well. It was a great learning experience. My landlord was a great guy called Len, who's a raving Man United fan, you know, total opposite, but he needed the fucking money, like, you know, so he converted a loft for 4 of us, and I was the first one in, and I'm being driven along to my digs, and the landlord said, you're going to meet Len and his family. I said, well, the family? He goes, yeah, he's got 2 daughters. I'm like, oh, you fucking dancer, like. They're fucking nuts, eh? So unmarried, thankfully. But I mean, they couldn't have been any better for me. They were a great family, and they gave me a home, which was really good of them.
And at that time, in the late 80s in Manchester, it really was a place to be, you know, with the music scene, the fashion. Did you embrace all of that as a youngster yourself? Well,
if people have seen me dress, I wouldn't have said that I've embraced the fashion, but the music scene was really good. And we had a local pub called the Elizabethan, and there was people like Craig Cash, who was in the Royal Family. And you've seen the Royal Family with Ricky Tomlinson. And Craig Cash is Dave, who's the boyfriend of Caroline Ahern. So Craig was a regular in there. The Gallaghers, before Oasis, would come in because they lived in a place called Burnage. And then there was a sitcom route called Early Doors, and it was based on the pub, the Elizabethan, and the landlord was called Ken. And the guy Ken who ran the Elizabethan was a real character, and he used to give us a lock-in every now and again. And there was one day, there was like 4 or 5 of us in after 11 o'clock, and there's a guy with his girlfriend who were regulars, but she used to take a wee turn now and again, and she took this epileptic fit at about 11:30, and Ken's shaking his head, and he leans over the bar and he went, hey, what did I say? No fucking dancing. Get her out of here. No sympathy, like, you know. Get her out of here before the police turn up. So there's a real sort of real wit and a real dry sense of humour, the Mancunians, and of course they love the football as well.
How did it materialise, Neil, that you had to leave, because you had played first team football at Main Road, that you had to leave and you joined Crewe Alexandra?
It was a real hammer blow, because I thought I was doing particularly well, and luckily for me, well, I'll say luckily and unluckily, Hard Kendall was the manager, and he'd come in and he'd been there for 3 or 4 months, and he was fantastic to work under. But he called me in the March and he said, look, this is the time of year where it's good news or bad news. And I'm thinking, well, it's going to be good news. He goes, it's bad news. And I'm like, oh, fucking. So he talked on for about 15 minutes, but it's one of them where you're not listening to what he's saying. And I had to go back to the digs, ring my parents up, and I'm thinking I'm going to have to go back to Ireland. That's the last thing I wanted to do, because I'd really sort of settled in England. And but because he had told me in March, he'd given me from March to May to keep playing, and the word was out that players were being released. So luckily enough, Dario Gradi took an eye for me, and I took my career on the Crewe then after that, which was fantastic. Club where he was producing. He would go to the likes of Man City, Liverpool, Man United, in that area, take the players who weren't being kept on and mould them into really top class players. He'd already done it before him, and David Platt, who went on to play for England, Arsenal, Barry. And then with Rob Jones, he went to Liverpool. And then Ashley Ward, Danny Murphy, myself, Ashley Ward, Liam Collins. So he produced all these really elegant and attractive young players, through that system.
And I mean, when you look at your Crewe career, it flourished during your time there, other than one season where you had a bad back injury. And you were capped by Northern Ireland. Now, what tier of English football were you playing in at that time?
League Two.
League Two, and you got your first cap for Northern Ireland. I mean, how proud were you, and obviously representing your family, were you to get that first cap?
Well, it was, the back injury was career-threatening. I was very, very close to having to give it all up, and I was out for 18 months, which is a lifetime. And there was a lot of rehabilitation. So it was a couple of years after I'd come back from the injury that I got called up. So it meant the world to me, I was only on maybe 120, 130 pound a week. So it wasn't about the money or anything like that. It was just about the football at that stage and the satisfaction that you got out of it. So it was a huge sort of shot in the arm. And obviously I was starting to attract attention again from other clubs, because after my first year at Crewe, I was diagnosed with the injury. I had a lot of clubs looking at me then, so that was a devastating time to go through all that. But it built your character. It made you strong, really mentally strong. And then obviously, things started really taking off. We got promoted. We were close to getting another promotion. And then, Coventry came in with a bid. Ron Atkinson was the manager at the time. And then Leicester came in, and of course Martin was the manager at the time as well.
And what was your first experience of Martin O'Neill? Meeting him, Chris obviously speaks about a time where he was sought after and it took one phone call from Dalglish. So did Martin O'Neill come out to your digs and speak to you, or how did that transpire?
Well, I'd spoken to Ron Atkinson at a hotel in Liverpool, and gone through the personal terms, and they were playing Man City, funny enough, that night in the Cup. And he gave me a couple of tickets to go to the game. I hadn't agreed to sign, but I was more or less there. So went to the game, and then I came back, and I was renting a room off my mate because I couldn't afford a house, and my girlfriend had kicked me out by that stage. So it was like the young ones. It was a hovel. The rats had left in disgust. So we go back and we're having a drink, more or less thinking I'd be going down to Coventry the next day. I got a phone call from a guy called Jim Melrose, who was looking after me, and Jim said, what are you doing? I said, I'm in the house. I said, well, what's wrong? He said, I've got Martin O'Neill in the car, he wants to speak to you. So I'm thinking he wants to speak to me on the phone. I said, well, put him on then. He goes, no, we're outside your house. Now, if you can imagine Coronation Street, this house was tiny, little cobblestone lane, and there's this big fuck-off black Mercedes with blacked out windows parked right outside. So in he comes, and it's just this whirlwind of a guy, long coat on. Lovely to meet you, pal. Been watching you for a while, and how's things with your family and that? Like, you give a fuck about my family, like, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's great. John Robertson's in. It's just wherever John Robertson was, there was a cloud of smoke behind him, So Jim had said to me, what did Coventry offer you? I said, they offered me £1,000 a week and £100,000 signing on fee over the 3 years, which was huge. It was still a lot of money now, but back then for me it was a hell of an amount of money. And Jim said, tell Martin, when he asks you, it's £1,500 a week and £150,000 signing on fee. I said, right, okay. So Martin's doing his pitch, and Leicester in the Championship, and I think you're going to be great for us, and you could do this, do that. And just this, cavalcade of, compliments coming at you, and I'm thinking, this guy's fucking great. So, and my mate, he had legged it upstairs. And you have to remember, this is like a, lad's house. There's a pool table. There's no cleanliness in the house, right? The sink is stacked up. There's pictures of PhD birds all over the place, Blue movies packed up about that size by the TV. And, he's wiping the dust off the couch, and he's immaculate, Martin, in his suit and long coat. Anyway, he goes, yeah, I'm going to see Coventry tomorrow, Martin. And he went, oh, no, don't do that, pal, don't do that. I said, what have they offered you? And I started going red. £1,500 a week. Pardon? And my nose was starting to get bigger and bigger. And my throat was drying up and everything. I went, £1,500 a week. And he'd look at you like that through his glasses and push the glasses up. He knew very well I was lying, you know. And what about the sign-on fee? 150,000. Pardon? 150,000. So he goes, have you got a pen and paper anywhere? And I went, no. Have you seen the fucking place, like? So we'd had pizza that night, so he rips the back of a pizza, Domino's pizza, and he writes down what he's going to offer me on this pizza box. So he gives it to me, and it's £1,800 a week and £200,000 sign-on fee. I was like, oh, wow, on the back of a pizza box, like, you know. So Jim said, come on, we'll go for a walk. So we went round for a walk, just round the block. We never got mugged, so we made it in one piece round the block. And I said, look, I want to sign for this guy. And it's one of the moments in your life that you all have it, you've all had it, I'm sure, but changes your life and takes your life on an upward trajectory or a different way. And that was my first real impression of him. And yeah, I had 10 years after that one was fantastic.
And O'Neill himself obviously made a huge impression on you, Neil, but that was the beginning of a phenomenal journey for Leicester. I know that recently they won the league, etc., but I mean the achievements that you had with your promotion, winning national trophies, etc., getting into the promised land of the Premier League. Well, I mean, tell us a wee bit about that journey. What was the team spirit like that Martin instilled in that changing room?
It was amazing. I think, you know, I played in Martin's best years. He was at his peak. He was just so charismatic. And people say, and he very rarely was on the training ground Monday to Wednesday, but he didn't mean to say he didn't know what was going on. He knew everything that was going on. He knew where you'd been, what you'd been up to, and I'd been up there a lot. And he'd be there on a Thursday, Friday. His team talks, as Chris touched on, were fantastic. He just knew what buttons to press. He would get like players like Stan Collymore, Tony Cotty, you know, Chris, and resurrect their careers, you know, and make them believe in themselves again and give them a complete new lease of life. Allied to that, he had a good eye for a player. I mean, he found Muzzy Izzet. Many people might not know Muzzy. He was playing for Chelsea's reserves, and Martin plucked him from Chelsea, and he went on to have this stellar career. And he should have really come to us. In the end, he didn't come to Celtic. Martin wanted to take him, but he was more than good enough to play in that team we played in. You know, Robbie Savage, he got him from Crewe. Did well with Robbie, like, because one thing Robbie lacked was ability. Yeah, like Steve Claridge, Matt Elliott, he brought from Oxford, and he created this really great atmosphere. But like Chris said again earlier, he had a seat out of the palm of his hand. I'd run through brick walls for him. You know, all the players would have done. His team talks before games, he'd come in on a scrap of paper, read the team out. And classic Martin would have been, we got promoted in 96, and we're going into the 96-97 season. And the majority of us never played at the highest level, so it was the Premier League. And all the way through pre-season, we'd sort of played four at the back, 4-4-2, 4-3-3, whatever you want to call it. And on the Thursday before the season started, we're going up to Sunderland at the old Celtic Park, and he bought Spencer Pryor, he was a centre-half, and Casey Keller, American goalkeeper. So they came in on the Thursday, trained on the Friday, travelled with us on the Friday to Sunderland. At 2 o'clock he names the team, and we're playing 3-5-2. We'd never practiced it, never worked on it, never practiced a set play. We scored loads of goals at Leicester from set plays, loads of goals at Celtic with set plays. And that was just Martin's ways. And for the next 7, 8, 10 years, he played three at the back. And, you know, all this nonsense about walking through shape, tactics, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't Martin's thing. He was certainly took a hell of a lot from Brian Clough. And he had that charisma of Brian Clough as well. And he could go through you like a hot knife through butter. He could make you feel this big, or he could make you feel that big. But you always wanted to play from him. You hated letting him down. And I let him down a few times, like, you know, and got on the wrong end of it.
After getting into the Premier League, Neil, and, you know, 3 league cup finals under Martin, It would have been in your back of your mind, surely, that there would be some suitors trying to come in for him. As you say, he's in his primaries career. How disappointed were you when he went to Celtic, or were you thinking that's maybe a ticket for yourself to come up?
No, I thought he was going to go to Leeds at one stage, because after David O'Leary had left, you know, he was at the top of his game, and Leeds were one of the big clubs, and there was definitely the mid waves for him. But he pulled me in the summer of 2000 and said, "Look, Lenny, this was sort of towards the end of the season, and we'd won the League Cup again." He said, "I've been approached by Celtic." He said, "What do you think?" I said, "What do I think?" I said, "You got to go. You know, you're from the same background as me." He said, "Would you come with me?" I said, "Fucking right, I will, yeah." So that's how it started. But Leicester were very belligerent in not letting me go. And the funny thing was, I said to my agent at the time, I said, "Look, I really want to go." So Celtic, I think Celtic offered around about 5 million at the time. Leicester said they wanted 8. And then Leicester called my agent in, and I said to my agent, "Just go in there and ask for stupid money, stupid contract. And once they turn it down, then I can hand a transfer request in to go." And my agent went in, and 2 hours later he came out and he said, "They've agreed to everything." So that backfired. So in the end, a mega contract, and I must have been the only person in the world unhappy to fucking sign it. Anyway, things took a turn later on. Celtic got off to a great start. Chris came in, Yoss, Alan Thompson. They had that great run at the start, beat Rangers 6-2, and then they lost at Ibrox heavily 5. And Paul Lambert had broken his shin, so Martin, made it clear, and I'd made it clear to Leicester that I was unhappy and I wanted to go. And we were actually sitting third in the Premier League at the time. But I really, I just thought I couldn't miss that opportunity. I was 29, and I would have regretted the rest of my life if I hadn't, made it happen. I'm thankful. And the other thing was Martin was there, and I had great success under him previously. So in the end, round about the beginning of December, it came to fruition.
Now, when I mentioned this to Chris earlier, at that time it's easy for Celtic fans to forget that we hadn't had a massive amount of success leading up to Martin O'Neill coming in. The club was stable, the stadium had been rebuilt, Neil. What did Martin say to you in terms of his ambition for the club?
Well, he obviously wanted to make a dent in Rangers. Rangers had won the league comfortably the year before. And Martin wanted to turn the tables. And obviously when it came in, you look around the squad and it was laced with real talent. The first day I was training was at Barrowfield, and it was December the 8th. And it's a Thursday. It's fucking snowing. It's 11 o'clock. They had to put the floodlights on. It was pitch black. Thinking, what's this all about? 2 minutes into training, Lubo had sent me for a pie and chips. So I thought, yeah, looks like it's a good team here. And then we go to Dundee and we got off the great start. They came back. They had a good side. Then Kanija was playing, and there's a couple of the Georgian players. And then, Didier Agat, of all people, scored the winner in the last minute and sort of went on this fantastic run after that. But it was amazing. When I turned up at the airport that day, the throng of people at the airport was incredible. Sky, and there was a lot of supporters there. And you come through these doors and all these flashlights. I'd never experienced anything like it. I knew all about Celtic, but I didn't know the intensity that I was going to, or the spotlight you were going to be under. And I even knocked off Madonna off the front page. She got married that day to Guy Ritchie, and I had knocked her off the front page. So fuck you, Madonna. Yeah, you didn't know that one something, did you?
You often get players come into Scottish football, Neil, who say that they didn't realise the magnitude of the club or the intensity of that rivalry. You had a good knowledge of the club with your upbringing, but did it still surprise you leading up to your first game against Rangers? And how did you prepare for that?
I was in the Marriott Hotel for 3 months, so it was quite sort of quite really disciplined, and you knew that this was a step up. This was just a step up in everything you had to do in your football career. I mean, the Premiership was great, but you're playing for a huge club now, and there's a huge rivalry here. And Martin told me before the game, he said, look, it's going to be a blur. The first game was a semi-final at Hampden in the League Cup. But I was lucky because with back-to-back games, we played them on the Wednesday at Hampden and then back at Celtic Park on the Sunday. So we won the first one 3-1, and it was, amazingly fast and brutal and intense. But we had them two up front, and I think Henrik scored two and Sutty got one. And that psychological edge that you get, you could see it in the body language. You could also see it in the body language in the tunnel when you see us lining up. And Rangers were always, under Walter Smith and under Souness and laterally under Advocaat, big, strong, physical team. I think Martin had looked at that and wanted to match that, as well as the great footballers that we had. So when we lined up in the tunnel, you could see that, all of a sudden, the whole dynamic of the Celtic team had changed. Even I was one of the smaller ones, but it was quite broad. Lambert was strong, Petrov strong, and then you had Mialbi, Valharin, Sutty. You had Ramon Vega at the time as well, Big Rob in goal. So you got a team of like 7 or 8 6-footers, and all of a sudden, they weren't physically imposing themselves on us, and we had the sprinkling of magic, the likes of Petrov and Henrik and Lubo to make the difference.
And you cleared up that first season, winning the treble. Could you take us inside the changing room and give us an insight into the kind of makeup of that team, Neil? Who were the big personalities? Who were the consummate professionals within that changing room of the treble-winning side?
They're all pretty professional, There's a few of us like to drink, Sutty was an acquired taste. As you can imagine, very dry sense of humour. But once you got to know him, he was fantastic to be around. Alan Thompson was like the club gossip. If there wasn't a true story, Tom would fucking make one up. You had Jackie. Jackie was, wee tough guy and really funny and quiet. Absolute assassin on the pitch, though. He loved the scissor tackle. That was his trademark. He'd just take people out like that. And you had Didier. Didier was very religious. Flying machine, quiet in the dressing room. Henrik was just Henrik, as he comes across, dead cool, calm, and just a great guy to be around. Johan was a bit more aggressive, to say the least. Who else was in that team? Paul was the consummate professional, really quiet. We played Rangers in the last Old Firm game of the season, and we'd already won the league. And it was my first time playing at Ibrox. It's 0-0 at half-time. And to be fair, Rangers have been on top the first half. So Martin's going ballistic at half-time. And, of course, he comes to... Whenever he wanted to vent his fury, he'd come to me or something. So he comes to me. Lenny, what's going on out there? What the fuck he's playing at? Blah, blah, blah. I said, well, we're getting outnumbered in midfield. Me and Paul we have an extra one in midfield because, Lubo cannot be asked running back. But... wasn't as polite as that, right? So he says to me and Paul, he goes, you two, you just fucking run and tackle and get the ball and give it to him. Paul Lambert, Champions League winner, right? The two of us are walking down the tunnel going, fucking little prick. Right. 10 minutes into the second half, it was 2-0. And Lubo scored fucking both of them. So you knew there and then where the pecking order was. Me and Paul were the hod carriers, and Henrik and Lubo and Sutty, they painted the pictures.
I remember reading in your autobiography, Neil, that you had experienced very little sectarian tension in your upbringing. Yet in 2002, became a death threat prior to an international match against Cyprus. How did you find out about that? How was that news broken to you leading up to that particular game?
Well, we were having a pre-match meal, and the police had come to the hotel, and I was called out, and they basically said, look, we've had a phone call into the BBC in Belfast to say that, you know, if you played tonight, you would get hurt. And I said, well, can you be more specific? He said, no, that's the way they've worded it. I said, well, could it be a hoax? They said, well, yeah, quite possibly could be a hoax, but, you know, we can't guarantee that. So they said, what's your advice? He said, well, we can't give you that advice. So I rang the head of security at Celtic, who's still there, a guy called Ronnie Hawthorne, and Ronnie had worked in the police for a long time. So I took his advice, and I said to Ronnie, look, we've had a phone call, don't know if it's genuine or not. He said, not taking any chances with you, Neil, we'll get a car to pick you up and take you back. So I ended up, I didn't stay at my mum and dad's, but we let it out to the press that I'd gone back to Glasgow to avoid the scrum. And I think we flew from another airport back to Edinburgh and then got picked up in Edinburgh. So it was pretty surreal, really, when they ended up, the club put me up in a hotel on the outskirts of Glasgow for the couple of nights. And when you see your you know, the Sky News on the hour every hour, and you're the headline news, it is quite surreal. You're sitting on the end of a bed, and people who you don't know are talking about you and making reference to you and giving an opinion, and whether it's informed or not. So it was quite surreal. I was well looked after, obviously, but you know, having spoke to my parents and my family, decided it was pointless. You know, because every time I would go back to Northern Ireland, that would be hanging over my head, or I would be the centre of attention, and I just felt it wasn't worth carrying on. I had so much to do with my own playing career with Celtic that I didn't want anything else to affect that. And we all know the reason why. The reason why is because for 36 games, when I played for Crewe Alexander in Leicester City, and 36 times I was playing for Northern Ireland, I didn't get one boo, one dissenting voice. As soon as I signed for Celtic, that all changed.
And you made that decision after just having said there how much it meant to you to represent your country. You made the decision then to retire.
Yeah.
And with regards to that, Neil, I mean, it's really sad that you're going to your workplace and you're having to face that kind of threat, you know, that real kind of threat. And we'll speak about that in a wee bit regarding some of the other things that happened later on. But I mean, with regards to that, you got a round of applause there. How important was it, the Celtic's fans' support of you after this news broke?
Huge. You know, the support I had, and the support that I've always had. You know, even now, you know, I've left the club 3 years ago. Wherever I go, I still get hugged, get photographs, get loved. So it's been a massive influence and hugely gratifying and rewarding part of my life. You know, I had 15 years there as a player, coach, manager, and I have no regrets whatsoever. Sometimes I wish we could have won more games or won more trophies, but the fact that you were in amongst playing with some of the best players of the time and managing the club and coaching and working with people and playing in front of the greatest supporters, and that's not me being patronising or anything. There's no question that the Celtic support is the best in the world. I travel the world, I see Celtic supporters everywhere. It was funny, we had a talking to Peter one time when I was manager, and I said to him, Peter, did you watch the golf last night? He says, yeah. I said, did you see what happened afterwards? He said, yeah, and started laughing. What happened was, it's Augusta, the US Masters, and it's a playoff, and the guy who won it was an Argentinian guy called Angel Cabrera, won it a playoff. And the clubhouse at Augusta is one of the most, you know, revered places in sport. And sometimes the president of America can't even get in there. But Angel Cabrera's walking in to pick up the green jacket. There's a guy in a Celtic top fucking patting him on the back. It's fucking brilliant. myself and Peter were having a chuckle. Like, it just amazes us. Like, you just see them cropping up everywhere. Like, you know, it's unbelievable.
One of the greatest examples recently of that was obviously in Seville, the following year, in 2003, Neil, where we got to the first final in 33 years. When you went into that game, I think I remember reading that Martin O'Neill told everybody, go out there and come back with no regrets. Mm-hmm. What's your memories of the lead up to that particular match?
We stayed in Jerez, it was about half an hour outside of Seville. I remember training, you know, I'd always go out, you know, on an evening game I'd always go out and do something, me, Stan Petrov, a few others, just to break up the day rather than just stay in the hotel. I remember going down to the pitch at the hotel and it was roasting, you know, this is like 11 o'clock in the morning, and I'm saying to Steve Walford, I'm not going to last the night, I'm going to fucking melt, you know. It's like, he says, it'll be alright, Lenny, it'll be cooler later on. Just always remember thinking about the game, sitting in your bed, thinking about the game, thinking about Deco, thinking about, you know, Costinha, Durley, you know, what the atmosphere is going to be like. And just guzzling water all day as well, just to stay hydrated. And then going to the game and just, the feeling was intense. The best feeling was after the semi-final that Chris has touched on, knowing you were going to the final with Celtic. That was the ultimate feeling. Going to the final itself was intense, you know. And it's like Chris says, you don't remember the ones that you lose that often. The first half we didn't play as well as we could, and we've gone in a goal down. And Martin got after us a little bit, not individually, just as a group, saying, come on, you're better than that. You've got more in you. And second half, obviously Henrik was playing at the top of his game, and it was fantastic second half. And once it went to 2-2, looked like there was only, we felt we were in control then, really, really in control. And then obviously the Bobo sending off, you know, changed the dynamic of the game, and they got the goal. And it was the silver goal rule at the time, you know, where I think it was 15 minutes or something like that, you had to get a goal or the tie was over. It was just that gut-wrenching feeling at the end, that emptiness that you feel, bitter disappointment, and, you know, just feeling you've let so many people down. But before the game you go out to warm up, and again it's like 30 odd degrees out there, and you're out warming up and you can just see a sea of green and white, you know. And I still get goosebumps now thinking about it, you know. But that is the big regret, that we didn't bring that trophy back, because we had a fantastic team. And I heard you talking to Chris earlier about building on what we did at Seville. I actually thought the year after, in 2004, was probably our best year. Porto went on to win the Champions League that year. And we, domestically, I think we went 28 wins in a row. Wins, like win. It was 25 or 28. Whitewashed Rangers. And Chris scored a great chip. It was brilliant, but I'll just do an impression. You can see it from behind the goal, and all the Rangers fans were doing the bouncy. The next thing, the ball goes in the net like that. So, and then the European campaign, again we played brilliantly against Lyon. We murdered Anderlecht at home. We drew with Bayern Munich. We were a goal up in Munich and ended up losing that one. And then we were 2-2 in Lyon, and we were getting through to the last 16, and then we conceded a penalty, and I think that was the one that got away, really. I think we'd have done really well in the Champions League. We got into the last 16, and we would have had a good run on it. I think that team that year would have done very, very well. In the end, we had a good UEFA Cup run where we beat Barcelona, and we lost the very good Villarreal side. But I think in terms of adding players to that squad, there wasn't much Martin really needed to do to that team over those 2 years, because it was quite a dominant team.
So you were entering your 30s at that stage, Neil. Were you using this European experience with a view to perhaps moving into the arena of coaching and management yourself? Were you thinking about it that early?
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, but when you're playing at that level, all you do is concentrate on your football. As you get sort of older, and to be fair, under Gordon, we had two. You know, I made the last 16 for the first time, the night we beat Man United, the Nakamura free kick, that was an incredible night as well. So then you go on and play in Milan in the last 16, and it was an amazing experience to do that. And then that's when you start thinking about, going into coaching. You've worked under great managers, but certainly the 10 years I had under Martin was as good an education as anyone could have, really.
Now, when O'Neill left and you mentioned Gordon Strachan came in, there was a change in terms of the transfer strategy of the club, whereby we weren't buying as many big-name players, maybe from the English Premier League. But one player that we did splash out on was Scott Brown. Now, what's your memories of a young Scott Brown?
I played against him a few times, and he was like me. He was a gubby little fucker, and he was like gallus as they come, and he still has a brilliant engine. And at that age, when he was 19, 20, he had phenomenal running ability, and he could handle the ball. And he liked to tackle, and like I say, he liked giving it out. So he was all personality. But I don't think that should shy away from the fact that he was a very, very good footballer. And he's had his ups and downs. Under me, he was fantastic for the 4 years I was there as manager. I think he had a little bit of a dip under Ronnie because of injury and things weren't going so well. But I think the last 18 months again under Brendan, you've seen what a superb player he is. And he's respected the dressing room. He's respect of his peers. He's respect of a lot of people in and outside of the game. And I think he's had a stellar career. I think he's had a magnificent career, and I think long may it continue. He's a good lad. He's got this reputation that we all get from. Sometimes they're true, and sometimes they're not so true. And sometimes these things, get blown out of proportion. He's this, he's that. He's not. And Tony made him captain, and when I got the job I decided to keep him captain because he had a bit of the rascal in him, but sometimes the rascals develop into the leaders, and he's certainly done that.
After your playing career ended, Neil, you returned in a coaching capacity at Celtic Park. How did that materialise? How was that approach made?
Well, Tommy Burns wasn't very well, God rest his soul, and I was sort of winding down my career, and Gordon rang me and asked me would I come up and help out, and there was like 9 or 10 games to go, and there was, I think, there was either 2 or 3 Rangers games still to go, but we were, I don't know, maybe 5-6 points behind. And the first game back we lost to Motherwell, and the fans were, calling for Gordon. Some section of the fans were calling for Gordon's head because the football wasn't great. But we needed a stimulus, and it came in the Rangers game, and beat them. I think they beat them 3-2 or 2-1. I don't know if you remember the game. First minute, Barry Robson's gone right back through the back of Christian Daly, which is right out of the Lennon school book, and it just lifted the place. So we won the 2 games, closed the gap, and ended up winning the title at Dundee United on the last game of the season. That was fantastic. And then I had a great time learning under Gordon for a couple of seasons, and then obviously went back to the reserve team when Tony came in and took over.
And of course, after the 4-0 defeat at St Mirren, Tony Mowbray was sacked, and you were asked to step in as the interim manager. Now at that stage, Neil, were you looking at that, because obviously you hadn't managed as such, were you looking at that as 9 games where you can really put a marker on this and get the job full time? Yeah, 9 games and see where it takes you. I was under no pressure. It was a free hit, but one that I wanted to try and make the best of. And it meant a lot to me, obviously. First game was against Kilmarnock, I'll never forget it. We won 3-1. And then we went on to win every league game, although we lost the semi-final against Ross County, which, again, I came out and was really critical of the team because I felt I could do. I wasn't the manager, so I could say what I really thought of the players, and I think it resonated with a lot of people. I think it resonated with the players for a start. Fucking Samaras for a start. And,
we went on to finish the season really well, beat Rangers. Really enjoyed that, obviously.
When did the offer come to become the manager, Neil, and how proud were you at becoming the manager of the club you had supported your whole life?
I was the proudest day of my life, and then signed the contract around about 11 o'clock at night. And you walk out into Celtic Park at that time of night, and it's amazing. You're thinking, wow, this is, you're running this place for the next however length of time it is. So it was an unbelievable experience, one that no one can take away from me. And I had 4 amazing years, which molds you as a person and as a coach, and tests your character to you've amazing highs and unbelievable lows. But to play for Celtic was a privilege to win, to captain Celtic, and then to go on to manage them. It's everything I could have dreamed of and more.
Now, I remember the first season, and there was the last league game of the season at Celtic Park against Motherwell, and it was a week before the Scottish Cup game. And although we didn't win the league, Neil, there was a sense that for the first time in a long while, the fans, the players and the manager came together. Is that something that you had kind of planned yourself? Is that something you had observed, or was that a natural thing for you?
It's just a spontaneous thing. I think I said, this isn't the end, this is just the beginning. And I meant it because we had a vibrant young team. We should have won the league, against a really strong Rangers team that year. And we had 7 games against Rangers that year. We lost the League Cup, we beat them in the Cup, the infamous one with me and Ali. You had the four league games as well. And it was tit for tat, and that was a big turnaround, big turnaround. We had a really vibrant young team, and I felt that, we went Inverness and lost, but at Ibrox we played really well, drew 0-0. Sammy missed the penalty. That would have put us 5 points clear and would have won the league. So there was a real sort of feeling of injustice, or a real incentive there to turn things around again. We went on the following week, won the Cup handsomely, and we just felt it was the start of something really good.
And I mean, it was. You mentioned Samaras a couple of times here, Neil. I was a big fan. I know that he divided opinion. Just how talented was he? You watching him as a manager. He looked like a real special talent. He
was, yeah. I mean, he was 6'4". He could run like the wind. Gorgeous. Really good lad. But he was a big game player. The big games floated his boat. And in 2010, I watched him in the World Cup. He was playing for Greece against Argentina, and he was playing basically up front on his own. And he ran them ragged. And I'm thinking, well, if he can do that, he can do that for us. So you really knew that, and I shouldn't say this really, but Ross County away didn't really do it for him. But you put him out at Rangers and you put the arm around him and you say, look, go and do your bit for the team, go and take them on, go and lead the line. And I knew after 5 minutes what sort of day I was going to have him. If he won the first header, then I thought, we're in. If he didn't bother his backside, then you could have been in for a long afternoon with him. But in the main, when it came to the big games, particularly in Europe and in Europe away from home, he was fantastic. At times he was unplayable. And against Rangers in the big games as well, he was top class.
You mentioned European games here, Neil, and obviously 2012 Barcelona. Possibly the greatest club side in the world at that time. They come to Celtic Park and you're able to put out a team and defeat them 2-1.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you approach that?
I watched them. We invited Sir Alex Ferguson up. I wanted to go down and watch him train at Carrington, and he said, "Look, we're rebuilding Carrington. I'll come up and see you at Lennoxtown," because he was up visiting his sister-in-law. So he came up one Sunday morning and just had a 2-hour chat, and he was fantastic. And the draw had been made, and we were playing on the same nights as Man United were playing as well, and they were obviously in a different group. But he said, watch Mourinho's Inter Milan in 2010 against Barcelona in the new camp, and it did. It was a semi-final. Inter were 3-1 up from the first leg, and Mourinho basically parked the bus, but they got through, and in the end, they had 82% possession, Barcelona. But Inter Milan had Sneijder, Milito, Materazzi, Samuel Eto'o. They had a fantastic team, and they went on to win the Champions League that year. So it was interesting just to see the way Mourinho set the team out. Anyway, we played St Mirren on Saturday, and then myself and Johan flew out to Deportivo La Coruña to watch them play. Barcelona were playing them. It was amazing. The game was at 9 o'clock. We got there about 7. And the crowds outside were unbelievable. This team were like the Harlem Globetrotters of football. And they roll up in this big, 2-story bus, and all their faces are adorned either side of it. Messi, Alves, Iniesta, Busquets, Xavi. And just 10 deep, the throng of people just to see them walking into the stadium. So the game kicks off, and after 10 minutes, Barcelona 3-0 up. And I turned around to Johan and went, I think we're in trouble here. But we went on to watch the game. Messi scored an unbelievable second goal where he dribbles past 3 or 4, corner of the box, no backlift, smashed it into the top corner. I actually stood up to applaud it, and Johan's looking at me going, fucking sit down. He said, you won't be applauding them on Wednesday night. So that made it 5-2. In the end, the game finished 5-4. Deportivo scored a penalty, scored from a free kick, scored from a corner, and it was an own goal. So we're looking at it. There's no way you can even attempt to play against this team because they just carve you open and wear you down. But we felt set plays was a really good opportunity to get a goal. So the game comes along, and I'll always remember in 2004 playing at the new camp with Martin. I go down some steps. You go down some steps, then it levels off, and then down steps again, and then you come up out onto the pitch. Halfway down, Didier Gap was in front of me, and he disappeared. So I went back, and there was a door, and opened up and said, Didier, what are you doing? And he's praying. It was a little chapel. So I'm like, oh, great, I'm in. And 2 minutes later, Martin comes in. Lenny, what are you doing? Gaffer, it's a chapel. Oh, right. So we got a result that night. Anyway, I'll never forget it. So straight to the new camp, the boys go out, warm up. I'm like that. Down the steps in. And 20 minutes into the game, we score from a set play. Samaras scores, and we're all right. We're holding our own. They scored a great goal just before half-time. And you get them in at half-time, and I said to Johan, could we have done anything about the goal? And he said, no, everyone was in the right position. It was just brilliant one-touch play from, Xavi, Villa, and Messi, and Iniesta finished it off. He said, there's nothing the lads could have done about that. Second half, Fraser Foster was amazing. Pulled off some astonishing saves. We defended heroically. And I'm looking at the clock, and it goes 90 minutes. You're thinking, God, what a result this would be. 1-1. 1-1 in the new camp. What a result. And then right at the death, we just switched off from across, and Alba scored. So it was heartbreaking, going into the dressing room afterwards. Players are exhausted. They're flat. We just said, look, you've just gone toe-to-toe with the best team in the world. Just hold on to this feeling of frustration. You got them in 2 weeks. You've seen them at their best. You know you can compete. And Celtic Park's a totally different venue to the new camp, and you know that. So the night before the game at Celtic Park, it was the 125th anniversary, and we all went to the Kelton. And there was just something brewing. There was just something in the air. It was amazing. And we had a service, and there was a little dramatic piece that some actors had put on about how the club was formed, and it was brilliant. It was magical. And Desmond donated £35,000 for the mosaic as well, which probably just fucking fell out of his pocket. So I'm joking. It was a tremendous gesture, but it just added to the good feeling that was around the club. And then, of course, you go out that night and you see the display, and you see 60,000 people, and the atmosphere. 125th anniversary, Barcelona Celtic. It just doesn't get any better than that. And again, we score from a set play. Now, you can practice them all you want. You know, we worked on it that Barcelona are zonal across the 6-yard box, and they leave Alba, who's the smallest player in the team, at the back post. So Charlie, who's got a great left foot, we said just swing it to the far post and let Victor go late and attack it. And Victor, who's a fantastic player, great delivery in, and Wanyama gets up and buries it, and the place just erupts. And you don't want to get too excited, like, you know, because there's fucking an hour to go. But you're delighted that, you know, you've worked on something and it's come off against them. Well, for the next 15 minutes before half-time, it was just a barrage, and they're like wasps. And it's, you know, I've spoken about this before. I'm actually in the technical area, and it must be like watching Muhammad Ali ringside, or watching Tiger Woods, you know, hole a putt for the Masters. You're watching the greats, your Messis, your World Cup winners, Xavis, Iniestas, David Villas, and our players, you know, threw themselves on the line, put blocks. Fraser again was unbelievable. So we get them in at half-time and said, look, you're just going to have to, more of the same. You're just going to have to dig in, make them go wide. You know, eventually, hopefully, they'll run out of ideas. And then 15, 20 minutes to go, we had Mika Lustig get injured. So I'm thinking, I like the shape of the team with two strikers on the pitch with Samaras and Miku. Do you remember Miku? Fucking I don't. So we wanted to keep two strikers on the pitch, so I'm looking at the bench, and the only one there is Tony Watt. And I'm thinking, well, he's got legs. He will go beyond them if he can. He'll take us up the pitch. So what I did was, Adam Matthews was playing left back. He went to right back. Charlie Mulgrew was playing left midfield. He went to left back. Samaras was playing up front. He went to left wing. And we threw Tony on. And we get a break. You know, Xavi miscontrols it. Tony goes in, makes it 2-0. And you're looking at the clock going, 82 minutes. And you're thinking, might get a draw here. So, yeah, it was amazing, you know. In the end, Messi gets his goal towards the end. But when the final whistle went, it was just an incredible feeling. But you don't get as a manager, you don't really. I look back now and I realise the magnitude of what it meant to so many people and the relevance of the result. But at the time, all I'm thinking about after the game is we've beaten Barcelona, and now we have to make the last 16. Otherwise, it's pointless. You know, I'm thinking about Benfica away and Spartak Moscow at home. But when I look back on it now, it was a tremendous achievement from a team that was relatively 10 million quid to put together, you know. And, you know, you look at some of the players now. Fraser's gone on to play for England. Wanyama's doing his bit for Tottenham. You know, Joe Ledley's gone on to play in the Premier League. You know, some of them have really kicked on, and the club have given them that platform and given them those Champions League nights, giving them the confidence to go and play at another level. And we found another one a year later in Van Dijk, who is just gone for about 25 pence somewhere, I don't know.
Well, on that night, Neil, you gave me the greatest night of my Celtic supporting career. I'm sure there's a few other people in the room who would agree with that. But tonight has been an absolutely fantastic insight, and I'd just like to thank you on behalf of everybody in the room tonight for your input. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Paul.
A massive thank you to Neil Lennon for taking the time to be a guest at the Legends of Football event, and for allowing us to share his input on a Celtic State of Mind. All of our previous episodes can be accessed via iTunes, Spreaker, or your pre-installed podcast player Make sure to subscribe and you won't miss any of our upcoming episodes with ex-players as well as prominent figures from the world of music, film and business. Keep up to date with future Legends of Football events on Twitter at Legends of Footy. A Celtic State of Mind can be contacted directly through at Paul Dykes, at A Northern Pros and at the CQN Podcast. Thank you all again for listening and for downloading the shows. Join us again next week where we'll be back alongside another special guest with a Celtic State of Mind.